Thank you for coming to That's So Nova. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, glad to have you back. Today is going to be another pouch in the pouch series that we have for the October of 2024. I'm introducing new pouches every Friday. I feel pouches are a great stepping stone for beginners, intermediate, advanced, and for pretty much any walk of life. And if you have a small business or you have no businesses and you just want to give people gifts or whatnot, pouches are the way to go. Today, in this particular pouch for the Love of Change by Mormino, we're going to be learning techniques about applique, and I will reverse applique, and we'll briefly talk about applique as well. In this, we'll be doing some piping and some zipper techniques. This bag has a nice round corner, so you can practice your curves on a pouch then before you start on a bigger project. So what you need for this, you're going to need to get the pattern. I will have a non-affiliate link in the bio. Well, I hate saying bio, the description area. But I wanted to show you a couple of these bags to show you how amazing they are. So for the pattern, it asks for a standard zipper. A standard zipper is normally a size 3 dress zipper. So I'm using a size 5. So I will explain the accommodations I did for this, as well as how I got nice taut zipper in corners and how my zipper's not wavy. As you can see on this one, we have some quilting geese going across. And instead of the D-ring or rectangle ring or O-ring, I used a swivel hook because I thought it would be great just to clip it onto it. And we're going to go over lining, how to make it a little bit larger seam allowance so that it can be nice and taut inside and not collapsing on itself. On this one, you can see I did reverse applique. I did reverse applique, and on leather, this is a nice oil pulled leather, and I used this really fun print from Sam's Creations with an eyeball and to pop out to give it that monstrous look. And then on the back, I did the applique of the heart, so I can have both the reverse and applique. As you can see, we have a nice taut zipper with a nice print inside. Just a fun print, and we have a nice size half-inch D-ring. Today, we're going to be making one. Though neither one of those had piping, I'm going to show you how I do some faux piping. I want to go briefly over, there's two sizes. There's a small and a large. We will be doing the large. You will need about 20 inches of pre-made piping, or you can make it yourself. Or I'm going to show you this really cool piping that I purchased quite some time ago from a small sewing shop. And you normally will find this kind of piping for the ends of dresses instead of hemming, but I thought it would be such a cute touch for this bag opposed to actually having piping. You want to make sure that your 2-inch square is printed exactly on there. Measure it up, make sure everything is perfect. If the square is not 2 inches, you can still make the pouch. You would just need to do your own measurements for zippers. And because I am doing different zipper tape and I'm doing a different size of zipper, I'm going to be doing a different measurement, and I will give you the math that I use to achieve a more boxy corners, pop outs with tabs. Okay, so what we should know now is that the seam allowance throughout the pattern is going to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance. The seam allowance for the zipper tape is 1/4. Now, if you're using a 3/8, you can use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance if you're using a size 5 zipper, but you also use a size, use a 1/4. I personally am going to use the 1/4, and hopefully that will be okay. I also wanted to show you the piping I was talking about. So this has the little peacoat laces that you usually see people take this, open this up. It looks like bias binding, and they put it at the ends of the dress, and it will have like a pop of color and the lace on the bottom. I thought how fun this would be to use this in reverse and use it as a piping. So that's what we're going to do. But first, we're going to get down to the nitty gritty for cutting out our heart. So I'm using More We Know. This is her lace fabric. I fell in love with this when I went to an event, and every time I see it, it always winds up in my cart. So for the large, I'm going to grab one piece. Doesn't matter which piece, unless you have, which would be fun if you have like scraps of like this was black and this was white. You can mix it up and have some fun. I'm going to take the pattern piece and I'm going to draw the heart. I should have picked another color. But that is me, always thinking, do I have gold? Bear with me for a second to see if I have a gold pin that will pop off on this black. And I'm tracing it out. Now, when I cut out this heart, I took my time and I made sure that I got everything rounded so that way when I draw it on here, it will look exactly how I cut it out. See, nice, beautiful heart. Now, I'm going to grab a pair of sharp scissors. There's two things you want to do on this scenario. If you want to take this heart and make an applique, then you might want to start with a rotary blade on the straight edge, and then you can start cutting all the way around. If you're like, hey, I don't care, I just want to cut out this heart, I'm not going to do the reverse, I'm not going to do the applique, like I'm not going to do the applique right now, then we're going to just cut it out. Get a pair of sharp scissors, and I'm going to go straight to the point. And I'm using scissors. If you have a scan and cut or a Cricut, or you can always like scan in the heart shape or measure a heart shape and cut out anything. And it doesn't have to be just a heart. If you have these cool machines, you can make this any shape you want for your reverse applique. Even if you don't have these machines, you could draw out things like you could draw Jack the Pumpkin King's head or acorn. I'm really into fall stuff right now, so take your time, make sure you're breathing. And if it's a little wonky, it's okay. Hearts are not perfect. Pun intended. I'm like full of mom jokes today. All right. Let me get this little thing. Little part. All right, so if I cut this right, if I didn't cut down the middle, I could have just placed this on top of here or reversed it, but I chose to do it. Now, this is the fun part because you can grab whatever fabric you have and you can put this underneath as an applique. I'm going to do something a little bit different that I haven't seen someone do. I'm going to use some scrap faux fur. This is that Shannon Cuddle Minky. And I was like, how cool. That's why you see it all over my table. How cool would this be to have a little furry heart? So that's what we're going to do. Now, you can start with, I'm going to start with some long tails. I'm going to bring this over to my machine. And I'm going to start on the side. And I'm just going to start stitching. Now when I get to this area where I'm going to pivot, needle down, turn, and I'm just going 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And not trying to go fast, sorry. My foot gets a little happy. You could even put a little bit of foam or batting to make it poke out even more. And then any area, I should have used some double-sided tape, but if any area that's being kind of like a little bit wonky, you can use a pen or a whatever, a stiletto or whatever you have available just to keep it nice and pivoty. I didn't know how well the faux fur was going to stick with double-sided tape, to be honest with you. I thought it would stick a little too well or not well enough. All right. So I'm going to have long tails. And I'm going to pull my threads. One thing about pulling your threads to the back, I know some people are like, oh, this is, this is a hard part for me. What I like to do is I like to take one of the tails, bobbin tails in the back, and just put like a clip or something on it so I know this is not the thread that I need to mess with. I'm going to just start with this one. I'm going to pull it. Take your time. Okay, now I'll take this one thread that I had and pull that up. And we have both our bobbin and our top thread to the back, and I'm just going to tie it off. You don't have to do this either. If you are like, hey, that takes too much time, backstitch 1 or 2 stitches forward and back. I'm all about backstitching. I just wanted to show that this can be a method. Okay, trim it, and then I'm going to trim around this heart to alleviate some of this bulk. I'm leaving it about 1/4 of an inch. And this is perfect because this was a big scrap that I didn't want to throw away. We know this particular minky cost a pretty penny. And now I get to incorporate it into a bag and I could play with it. You could take a comb and get all the little hairs out and make it like wild and crazy. I thought it was a cute idea. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my centers on my exterior pieces. And I'm going to do a little snip, no more than 1/8 of an inch on both. Okay, and then I'm going to put double-sided tape 1/8 of an inch across just the top. Okay, we're going to work on the piping. We need to place the piping and put it at a 90-degree angle and put it a 1/2 inch from the top. So we're going to grab the front piece and we're going to just put a few marks real quick just to draw a 1/2 inch. And then I'm just going to grab my chalk pen. I love chalk because it just washes off with water, soap and water. Now, if you want it lower, like at 3/4 of an inch, you can do that as well. It's really, the world's your oyster. Have some fun with it. And it's a 1/2 inch. So, as you can tell, this is about 3/8 of an inch. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw kind of the seam allowance at 3/8 of an inch. So, you really won't see these chalk pens. You're only needing to put this on one area, but if you are like me and you don't have wide tape and you're afraid that it'll get lost in the because it's not quite 1/2 inch, that's okay. This is a quick little method. You can just draw your your seam allowance at, well, I'm doing a seam allowance at 3/8 of an inch because that's where I'm going to place it to hide this. So that way I won't lose a little, like the little pea coat, so the little thing. So I'm going to fold this at 90 degrees like it said, and I'm going to place this down, and I'm going to stitch it so that the piping is going towards the inside of the bag. And if you're using actual piping, a piping foot works better. And you see how, like, this is my half-inch mark. So when I go over, I'll still have some polka dots and some lace. That's what I was concerned for. I want some of it to poke out to show the fun of this beautiful print. And I'm just basting this on. You can use a different stitch length. Again, if you've been to my channel, you know I am the worst stitch changer ever. Like, it is not in my vocab. All right, so I'm just going to take this and I'm going to snip this excess off, and I'm just going to get ready to fold this in half. At a 90-degree angle where I marked. Okay. And then just back stitch, lock that in, and we have our faux piping. So when this comes right sides together, we should have a nice little peek through like this, which just adds more character to the bag. Okay, and I'm just gonna cut these little tabs so they're flush. All right, on this piece, I'm going to start prepping for the D-ring placement. Now, see, you can have the ring the opposite side. Like, I like to have my zipper close to the left, so my zipper is going to close over here. If you have the ring on this side, that means you can hold it as a tab to close your bag, or you can have it on the same side, so that way you know your bag's closed. It's all about personal preferences. So you know you need to put the pattern piece in reverse where the marking is if you're doing it on the opposite side, because like I am, because I have a lot going on the main exterior piece. So I'm just gonna use my chalk pencil again and then prep this. I did not have a matte black 1/2" D-ring and or a 1/2" OD squivel, none of that. So I am going to use a 3/4 inch. I'm using some carpenter tape. Carpenter tape is one of my favorite tapes to use. One, because it rips. Two, because it doesn't gum up my needles as much, and it's super sticky, as you can see. They use it on carpet, so you know it's going to last for a minute. It's going to be permanent. I'm going to flush both pieces of this water-resistant canvas towards itself. Now, the reason why I'm using water-resistant canvas and not this lace, the lace itself adds a little bit. If this was just plain vinyl and had no structure or no lace in it, I probably would have used it. But because it has the lace, it gives it a little bit more bulk. So I wanted my area not to have as much bulky area when I sew over it, so I chose water-resistant canvas. I actually think I chose it for this bag too. I chose it with water-resistant canvas, and you can see even with this one with the vinyl, there's a little bit more, it's a little bit more bulky with it. Now, there's no interfacing or anything in it, so if you have scraps of water-resistant canvas that match the color that you have, that's one way to alleviate bulk if that's what you want. We're going to now sew this down at 1/8 inch on both sides. And for a 3/4 inch zipper tab, pull, like I'm doing, I'm using 1.5 inches by 2.5. So it can fit. So I'm going to place this. I'm going to have about a 1/2 inch hanging out. I'm going to baste this on. I'm going to baste this on at about 1/8 inch. All right, we're almost getting ready for the final construction. We just need to put the zipper together. All right, so my formula for zipper tape. The instructions say that you need for a large, you need a size, I believe, double checking, sorry. I just had that. A size 9-inch all-purpose. And see, when you have an all-purpose 9-inch, you have a stopper and on both sides, as well as you have excess afterwards. So when you're using a zipper by the yard, you got to be a little bit more careful because you don't have built-in metal stoppers. So what I tell people to do is measure your top piece, right? Measure your exterior piece. And when I measure my exterior piece, this is about 9.5. So what I usually do is I take off the seam allowance. So the seam allowance is a 1/2 inch. So that means I take a 1/2 inch off of each side. So therefore we'll be at 8.5 inches. Then I take off 1/4 of an inch to get over that hump that were for the zipper top. So 1/8 of an inch on each side. So I'm going to cut my zipper tape at 1 1/4 of an inch. The reason why we went from 8.5 to 8 1/4 is that 1/8 of an inch on each side, just to allow it to go over that little hump without it trying to sew over it or trying to give it a little bit of wiggle room makes all the difference in the world. So then my zipper tabs I have are, because they're raw edges, I have the vinyl and they're 1 inches by 1 1/4 inches long. Okay. So I'm going to bring my carpet tape again here. It's 1 inches long. So I just put it on. And then we're going to grab our zipper pull. And you just want to feed the zipper teeth into the zipper pull and just kind of wiggle it on so it's even, and it'll just push on organically and you should have a nice straight one. If you can't get a zipper on right away, I totally get it. Take your time. And you can try to put it on the table. That helps. There are forks, and there are many shops that sell Gina-majigs and all these other cool things to help put a zipper on. It takes time. There are people that have been sewing all their lives sometimes can't put a zipper on. It's just, it's a weird trick of the trade. So I'm going to take this and put this at the 1/2 inch mark, and then I'm going to eyeball this. And if it's a little bit shorter, it's okay. It's going to get caught up. Just try to get it even on the zipper tape itself. This zipper tape, I always forget the ones with the stripes, is actually a little bit wider than 1 1/4 inch. I always forget that. But it's okay. I'll just put it in the middle. It'll be fine. All right, so then we're going to top stitch these down. And just bring this side over and do that. Okay. Trim any loose threads. And then we're going to mark our center. So I put both ends up to it, touching each other, and then I'm just going to mark the center. I'm using an air erasable pen, and I'm going about 1/4 of an inch, and even if it doesn't come out, you won't see it because it's there. It's, So I always like to start with the zipper that going to the left first. So I'm going to trim these threads. I thought I already did. I'm telling you, it's like they need to come up with like a vacuum or something that's automatic threader, like trimmer, like you put it on the table and it trims all your threads for you. I would be all about that. So I'm going to make sure my zipper points zipper is going to the left and not the right. If it goes to the right, it goes to the right, and it should be okay still. And then I'm going to place my centers on my centers, and then I'm going to gently place the zipper tape down. I'm not going to tug. I'm not going to try to force. I'm not going to try to force it to stretch or anything. I'm trying to just ooh. Okay, let me get some more tape. I got this tape off at Lowe's, I think, or something, and I thought it was smart because it ripped off. And sometimes it's amazing. It works absolutely amazing. And other times I'm just like, ugh, worst tape ever. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to grab one of my lining pieces and put it right on top. Sorry, I'm going to move this marker. And I'm going to sew this down using 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Be cognizant of your zipper pull. You can always stop and move your zipper pull out of the way if you don't have a zipper foot. All right. Then I'm going to, what I like to do is I like to stitch with the seam allowance going down towards the exterior, where you see the black is, the main panel. And I'm going to only stitch from zipper tab to zipper tab, not going past the zipper tabs. And I will back stitch. You could pull your threads out if you wish. I always give props to people that can do that. It's a lot of patience. Patience is not my strong suit. So just make sure that seam allowance is nice and flat. Okay. Let's trim these threads. I have the faux fur everywhere. I am pretty sure I'm going to be sneezing my head off today. So it's nice and taut. And I do that also because I like the fact that the lining's not stitched down. I know that some people like it, but when you have a bigger zipper, it doesn't really get caught up in it. And it just, to me, I like the way it finishes. You can always sew down the lining too from tab to tab if that's what you prefer. That air erasable just like disappeared that fast. That's crazy. I'm like, where is it? And this is why I hardly use them. Because, like, you know, sometimes you have to walk away from a product, grab a snack or something, and then all your markings are gone. That's unfortunate. And I'm just laying it, gently pressing it. You don't see me like trying to stretch it. I think sometimes we stretch out an accident our zipper tape, and that's why we can get a wavy zipper tape. Put this cap on that seems to keep coming off. Then put the lining right sides together, 1/4 of an inch. Back stitch really well. we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this lining from the back side. We're going to take the lining and put lining to lining. We're going to make sure that seam allowance lays nice and flat towards this exterior panel piece. And we're going to sew zipper tab to zipper tab. So I'm grabbing my tails. And we're going to back stitch a few stitches to lock it in. Okay, doesn't that look pretty? All the black and white. I'm getting like my Tim Burton vibes over here. Okay, and now we're gonna open up the zipper. Make sure that this stays together. We're going to place this together. So what I like to do is I like to take the two edges that are folded, and the first thing I do is I'll put a clip on it to make sure that I know that these two pieces need to stay put. So these two folded pieces, I butt them up nice and close to each other as best as I can, and then you grab a couple clips. And we're just going to clip this around. Making sure everything's nice and lined up. Okay, and then on the bottom here, we're just going to make a mark. We're going to have, you can have like a, you know, however big opening you want. I usually like to start and stop about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch where the curve is about to begin. So that way you know. Now we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So what I'm going to do is when I start here on the lining, I'm going to start with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I know that sounds big, but the seam allowance is a 1/2 inch. So going up 1/4 of an inch more will make sure that the lining is nice and taut. Okay. So we're going to start 5/8 of an inch, go about 3 or 4 stitches, and reverse back. Now this is where the part where a lot of people get tricky. Right when you're about to get to the tabs, that's when you slowly reduce your seam allowance from 5/8, and you slowly going from 5/8 to 1/2 an inch. And then you can kind of see your stitching. The reason why I have the piece with the applique on it, because you can kind of see where your stitching are from your piping. So you know if you follow within the 1/8 of an inch that your piping will still show through. Because I've accidentally sewn over where the piping was sewn in between the seam allowances, and it just looked really like a bulging disc on the spine. It wasn't very cute. All right. We're going to come over this bulk, and then I'm just going to back stitch, because this is where the the D-ring tab is, or your swivel hook tab, and that area might get a little bit more extra tugging, pulling, or what have you. So an extra back stitch doesn't hurt it. And then I always do a few back stitches into that transition mark, and then we're going to go back to the wider stitch, transitioning to that 5/8 of an inch. And that is it. Okay. From here, I kind of snip at an angle so that this area can close off, and I automatically finger press this so it can kind of know where it's going to go. And when we close it up, if it's finger pressed and creased or ironed ahead of time, it just makes your life a lot easier. The next thing I'm going to grab is my pinking shears. I'm going to pink all this down to about a little over 1/8 of an inch, but don't pink into the actual place that we're going to close the pocket. Pinking helps reduce the bulk. If you do a straight cut, you're just having layers stack on layers and you can have a bulky bottom. However, if you have pinking, it like reduces and spreads it out so that way it looks more even. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go around here and pink this. Okay, and then around here I can't really pink because we have that tab. So I'm just going, that's where I'm going to trim really closely so that way I don't cut into that tab. All right. Now that we did that, we're going to birth this bag. And because there's no interfacing really in this bag, you can just birth it a little bit easier than other things, which sometimes we need that. We need that win. We're birthing this. Oh, this is cute. And let's get a chopstick. I'm gonna get these corners out. And if you have any chopsticks at home, I have like wooden ones from like leftover stuff that we didn't quite eat. And then I'm going to just make sure everything's nice and crisp. And then I'm going to take out my lining, poke out the circles, well, not the circle, the rounded corners, and see how that we creased it and how it kind of just wants to boop, go back in. Now you could put a label in here if you wish, or you could just close it up. With a 1/8 of an inch stitch. I hate when you're trying to pick up that one piece of thread and it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going, not today. Stuff your lining back into your bag. And ta-da! We have a super cute, this is so adorable. We have a super cute For the Love a Change bag that has a nice like faux fur heart. We have a nice, really cute, like peekaboo, like lace border with polka dots. And it just, I don't know, the stripes, the lace, the polka dots. I am just filling this with the faux fur. We have like all of the themes. We have a nice 3/4 of an inch, like rectangle ring. It's perfect. It's ready to go. You can now, if this bag is so cute, you can totally make a cute little wristlet, and this is ready to go for the night on the town. I think these are perfect to give to anyone. I also have some ideas before I let you go. If you guys get grommets, you can possibly install, not possibly, you could punch a hole through the lining in the exterior of one side and put grommets, and it could be a potty bag for your puppy. There's just so many things that this can be. You can install credit cards. It could be a nice little wristlet. There is endless opportunities for this, and I just wanted you to know you can make it more rugged, make it leather. You can use quilting blocks, quilting things that you've been wanting to do, like the flying geese that I wanted to do in faux leather and cork. There's endless possibilities, so definitely give this a try. Again, I'll have the link for More Me Know for the Love of Change in my down in my description box. If you're like, Shanova, man, you solved my problem. You gave me so many ideas. And I want to say thank you. The best way you can say thank you is by liking, sharing, and subscribing and commenting on the video. By subscribing, commenting, and sharing, it gives my video traction in the algorithm and gets other people to meet me, and it helps out tremendously. And you're like, Shanova, I want to go one further step. I do have a Ko-fi, and a Ko-fi is where you could buy me a cup of coffee, and I'll have that link also pinned in the comments and in the description section. So until we meet again, I hope you guys have a great day and stay whimsical.